Welcome back to another episode of Season 5 of the RAG podcast. As you guys know by now, this is the #1 podcast across the recruitment sector globally. And we've always been on a mission to help recruitment agencies grow by interviewing founders and telling their stories of success from startup all the way to scale up and exit. Well, this season we're a little bit different. We're not only going to do that, but we're going to focus on a little bit more. Since the pandemic began, we know so many people have struggled with maintaining their habits of success in work, but also everything else outside of work with it. You know, how do you as a recruitment leader and founder maintain your family and friendships whilst being the best person at work? How do you stay physically fit mentally and emotionally? And how do you find time for yourself in the madness? How do you find time for self-interest, for hobbies and self-improvement? Well, to help you with this, I'm going to be interviewing someone every single week that can demonstrate experience in one or more of these areas. So I'm going to talk to recruitment founders and also some experts from outside the industry who can deep dive into things like relationships and health and well-being. That's every single week. You have an opportunity to learn from an expert or one of the most decorated, successful recruitment founders on the planet. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy today's show. Hello, welcome back. We are live on LinkedIn Live today, and I am buzzing to be back for, I think it's the third episode of season 5. I don't know where the time's going. I just listened back to the video there, and I've noticed that I recorded it when I was really ill, and I sounded horrendous, so that needs to be recorded. Anyway, look, I'm back today. I'm delighted to be joined by Gaelle Blake, who I will get into in a moment. I'll give you an overview of who she is and we'll get cracking. Before I do, I must mention our sponsors for today's episode, who I'm extremely grateful to partner with. I want to mention Odro, who's actually the reason I met Gaelle, who Ryan McCabe, the CEO, introduced me to Gaelle recently. And I know they do a lot of work with the guys at Hays. I think everyone knows. Odro is literally the #1 interview and engagement video recruitment software on the planet. They are working with recruitment agencies exclusively all over the world. And there's two things I want to mention. The first is they announced this week that they are growing their offices. So they moved into an office in Glasgow with 4 people, and they've now been moving. They've now moved to a space with room for 50 people. They started just before Hoxo. I've watched their journey, and I'm in awe of them, to be honest. I love to watch what they're doing. But the main thing they've asked me to tell you guys is they are hiring. They're looking for salespeople and customer success people who come from the recruitment sector. So if you're a recruiter listening to this and you'd like to work with the sector as opposed to in the sector, I don't think there's many brands that you could want to join that would be Odro. So get in touch with Dougie Loan, the Chief Revenue Officer, on LinkedIn, or email recruitment@odro.co.uk. Our second sponsor is Vincere, the all-in-one recruitment software for, I would say, progressive recruitment businesses. Everyone I talk to who got Vincere as their CRM, they're always the kind of the new kid on the block, the brand that are growing faster and with more ambition than anybody else. What I love about Vincere is they're building tools to support front, middle, and back office. They want to be the tool that effectively gives you a bit of everything from a recruitment perspective, end to end. Now, they love the RAG, they listen to the RAG, and they've decided to give people who are RAG listeners some amazing discounts. So if you're thinking about moving CRM or starting a business with your first CRM, then please visit www.vincere.io/RAG, not the RAG, and you will get a discount by listening to the show. Right, let's get into today's episode. As I said before, I'm joined by Gaelle Blake. Gaelle is the UK and Ireland Director for Permanent Recruitment across Hays. That's every permanent division within Hays in the UK and Ireland, as well as she manages the UK and Ireland's construction and property division, which is one of the biggest divisions in the business. I mean, I can't even imagine. I've already got grey hair. I think I'd have no hair if I had that job. So, Gaelle, thank you for taking some time out today and joining us on the show.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Really excited about this.
Yeah, I'm just coming off the back of that cold, as I mentioned. So yes. If I do cough, I'll mute myself if I start coughing. But I felt really good before the session, so I should be fine. But look, as I mentioned, Ryan introduced us recently, and I absolutely loved our initial chat. I was so excited for today's episode. Can you do us a favor? Give us a little bit more meat on the bones as to the role that you do. So for the listeners, what does the UK and Ireland Director of Permanent and Construction Property Engineering really do? Give us the overview.
Well, ultimately, I look after, I guess I've got two roles. But as we talked about a little bit earlier, I always try and, rather than compartmentalize them into two roles, I always try and see how they can feed off each other and try and look at things holistically. So I look after all permanent appointments, but it's obviously not me on my own. It's me, and I work with an amazing team where we look after all strategy around permanent recruitment for all of our specialisms. So we operate in 23 different sectors. We call them specialisms. Yeah. And ultimately it's how do we bring that all together, and how do we have an overall strategy to make the best choices, in terms of recruitment for our clients and our candidates, and how to work best with them. So I do that role. And then I also do a role where I look at just one of those specialisms I just mentioned, one of those market sectors we look after, which is construction and property. It's one of our biggest ones. I look after that as well. So that's everything in the built environment, from an architect who first designs, for example, someone's house, all the way to the brickie on site who actually builds it, to the person that comes in and helps to maintain it. So, and all the way through that process, I look after all of that, again, with a phenomenal team that I work with, amazing consultants. So I kind of have both of those roles in my life. So,
and the construction side has temp and perm within that. So you
it does, yes. And that was my background. That's my actual. So when I first joined Hayes, I came into that. It was called Montrose at the time. I don't know if you remember it. Yeah. But I first joined Hayes Montrose. Dare I say this? 1999. Obviously, as young person. So I joined in 1999, and so I guess when you sort of join something, it kind of gets you right there. And so I worked with engineers, civil and structural engineers, and that's who I first started working with. And I stayed in construction property for quite a while until my first son was born. And then I actually went and set up a different business within Hayes, so completely different, moved away completely from construction and property. Actually ended up working with professional services and all sorts of different things. And then I had another son, and then in 2014 came back to construction and property to look after the whole London market. Started also doing some work in perms. And then in 20, I'm trying to think, I had another son, so 3 boys at this point. Then I started looking after permanent appointments for the whole of UK and Ireland. And then about a year ago, also started looking after construction and property for UK and Ireland. So 3 boys, 3 kind of big chunks of my journey, I guess.
And that is a job in itself. I mean, I'm the middle of 3 boys growing up, so I know what that can be.
You just froze on me then.
Can you hear me now? Are you with me? Can you hear me, Gail?
Sorry, you just froze on me, but you're back now. Sorry.
I'm back. Yeah, I don't know if my internet should be good. I'm the middle of 3 boys, I said. So in my life growing up, that's my experience, right? So I know what it would have been like. Well, I can imagine what my mum went through having 3 boys, but she didn't have a job like you. So God knows how you've managed it. Take us back, Gail. I mean, the thing about Hayes is interesting, right? I believe, I'm not the first to say, there's a bit of a negative, you get some negative press out there. I know a lot of Rectorex like to slag Hayes off. And I worked for Randstad. I started my career in Randstad, and you guys were like our rival. It felt like the enemy, but you were like the same business, really. When we used to play football with the Hayes lads, and it felt like they worked for the same firm. But I don't think I've met anyone who's worked in a firm like that for 22 years and asked those questions. So take us back. Firstly, why did you get into recruitment and join that business straight out of university or whatever it was for you?
Yeah. My very, very close friend from university. So I went to Warwick to do my first degree. And then I knew I didn't want to go straight into work. I'm quite a youngie. I graduated when I was 20 because I'm a July baby. Right. So I knew I wanted to go off and do a master's. And so I did a master's degree in management. And I was at the University of Bath at the time. But a lot of my years sort of went on to work. So they were kind of a year ahead of me. And one of my closest friends, Jenny Mole, she might be listening to this, was actually in recruitment. And she actually said to me, I'm doing this. I think it would really suit you. And I was like, okay. And I really trust her. And I thought, actually, okay, if she thinks this is something I'd be good at, I need to really listen to her. So I was coming to the end of my master's, and I thought, right, well, she talked me through it. And I started to apply for some recruitment jobs. And at the time, I think I feel like I'm probably quite a lot older than you, but at the time, this is 1999.
I was in year 9. I was in year 9 then. I should have been in recruitment in year 9.
Yeah, I mean, so in 99. So it wasn't something that a lot of people did, if that makes sense. So I remember trying to explain to my mum and dad for quite a long time what it was, and I just don't think they ever really understood it. I applied for various jobs, and I remember being on interview with Hayes, and Darren Buchanan, who still works for the company now, was one of my interviews. And I remember we do the interview, and then a certain way through, he said, he stopped and went, "Who's your favourite comedian?" And I just thought, oh, this is a bit interesting. This is a bit different. It wasn't the usual, and he just started talking to me about my favourite comedian. And I thought, actually, I get this. Like, this is something a bit different to all the other interviews I've been on.
Yeah.
You just get that click. You just feel like, oh, actually, there's something more to this. And we obviously had the same sort of sense of humour, clearly.
Who was your favourite comedian?
Yeah, I think my favourite comedian at the time was Eddie Izzard. I was really into Eddie Izzard. I was coming straight up uni. I loved Eddie Izzard. I still do, actually. I just think he's so funny. Okay. Of course, I'd probably say a little bit more Peter Kay now, but really, really like Eddie Izzard. So and we just went off on one about Eddie Izzard for half an hour. So I think that, and then one of the other interviewers went to the same school as me in Nantwich. It was kind of like this random. Yeah. So I guess I just felt that click, don't you? I think you feel that. And I think that's when in my job, going back to my job now, Permanent Appointments, that's always what we're trying to achieve, is what is important to that candidate and how can we help them to feel that click, that energy, that this feels right, this feels comfortable. And I think I'm a very intuitive person. So to me, it was on that, this feels right. I need to like where I am. I can see myself fitting with these people every day. And I think that,
did you ever feel, a master's educated, you're clearly an articulate person, you're well educated, you got a master's. Did anyone ever look down on the fact you took a job in recruitment and didn't go into like consulting or any other what some people feel is a more professional service?
No. Or if they did, they didn't tell me.
Right.
I think I'm very, very fortunate in that I have very supportive. I was so I've been with my husband before I joined Hayes, if that makes sense. Wow. We met at university, and I think when you start kind of a relationship when you have basically nothing, you're both students and pretty poor, I think that sort of grounds you. And we were both starting jobs, completely different. He works in our really techie IT kind of geek. So he was kind of going one way and I was going the other. And all my friends, I guess, I probably don't seek too much approval. Maybe I didn't ask the question. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, you probably could tell I'm not that sort of person. So but no, my parents are very supportive and always are just like, if you love something, if it's your passion, you'll be really good at it. And it doesn't matter if whatever that is, they've always encouraged me and my brother to be that way. So, I'm not a particularly sort of status person, which probably sounds a bit strange in the sense of recruitment, but I'm not somebody that's particularly hung up on how people kind of, do I have?
I get it. I get that vibe. If you I get it.
Yeah.
How would you describe those, the first 5, 6, 7 years or whatever of your career and the trajectory that you went through? Was it an easy, you build well, you became a manager? Was it the classic billings to manager route that you went through?
Totally. I think I've always worked hard. I would say that. My parents always were very much with my brother and I. It doesn't matter if you succeed or not, but you have to try. Like, that is a non-negotiable. You absolutely have to try your best. If your best means that in any whatever way, you're not massively successful, that doesn't matter. It matters that you try. So I think also the other thing I would say is my mum and dad made both me and my brother work from quite an early age. So basically my brother was a paper boy from pretty early on. I worked in Boots and then I worked at a local bakery in Cheshire. Like, we were taught to work. Does that make sense? So I had pretty strong work ethic. Yeah. And it wasn't about the money. My parents were like, we'll pay for, university or whatever, but you want to go out, you work. So it was kind of, I worked pretty hard all the time. So I would say I took that to my career at Hayes. and I just worked very hard. And I really got to know my sector. I worked in civil and structural engineering, which is quite a technical sector. These people are very highly educated. And I just really got into it and really loved it, built good relationships, build very, very well, then started to build a team around me, kept growing, kept growing, get given more stuff. And then there's a point, of course, where actually the management, the leadership becomes all consuming to the point where then you go, okay, I'm going to step away from billing and I'm going to go into leadership. So it was, I think I just kept, you know what they say, think about the process rather than the outcome. So that's what I just kept doing. I kept focusing on the process, kept focusing on being the best leader I could be, the best, consultant I could be to my clients and my candidates, and just kept going. And I'm still in contact with candidates I placed 20 years ago now, like still in contact with them because I care, and I do care about them. And I think they care about me. I had a client that did a survey, one of my houses for me. It's kind of like I never thought of it as a short-term career. And I think if you play the long game and you're just kind and authentic and nice, people, I know there's all those things you probably don't think of as recruitment, but I think if you are, then you have a longevity because people can see that.
I totally see. I mean, I personally believe the best people I've met in the sector are the most, they're really open, and they're the people that build more. You build a relationship that goes way beyond the job. Like I remember when I got back from Australia, I moved to London and I started working at a small firm, and I'd gone from Randstad with like 150 people on the floor to 7 in an office. And I remember the fear of what everyone could hear me saying. Well, actually, no, I didn't have any fear at the beginning. But then when everyone started taking the piss out of the things I was saying, because they could all hear it, no one really listened to me in Randstad because it was so big. And I used to tell a lot of stories, right? I used to share, like, I'm from Manchester, I'm living in London, I've got this girlfriend, I'm a Man City fan, I'm planning on moving. I don't know, it just, when I didn't know what to say, I just spoke about my life, and people share. And I used to get the absolute, like, everything ripped out of me for it. Like, people thought I was this, like, big-headed character. What happened 6 months later, though, when I started billing way beyond everyone else, the same people who laughed at me, come back and said, what are you doing? Like, why is it working so well for you? And I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. And then when I analyzed it, and I took a bit of time on this, I realized I listened to everyone else on the phone, and everyone else, all they did was talk work. That's all they did. And I was like, I don't think you guys are building relationships beyond the job. So people actually want to work with me. They don't just have to work with me. They're not just on a mandate. Do you know what I mean? And
I totally believe that.
Yeah. And then that played into content. And the whole journey I've been on with personal branding is like, the more I've shared, the more I think people connect. And it doesn't take away from the job. You still do what you do for a living.
Yeah.
Why not have some personal fun with it, for God's sake?
I totally agree with you. I mean, I really like rugby. I just really, really like rugby. And I was lucky, I guess, in a way, that a lot of the structural engineers I was working with, they love rugby as well. So often if the Six Nations have been on, or if the autumn tests have been on, honestly, that could be my Monday morning, speaking to people and just, oh, did you go? And I happen to really love it. So I could really connect with them on that. But I think it's about, like you said, it's about, isn't it about the power of connection? Yeah. And about, as you said, I think people can see, if you want a short-term career in recruitment, yes, you can, give it all the lines and all those different things. But I think when you are authentic and when you do what you say you're going to do, and you consistently do that, and I think with authenticity, it's seeing the same thing over and over again to the point where you believe that's someone's real character. That's what I think trust is, isn't it? Yeah, 100%. And I think if you are yourself, you don't have to check yourself. You don't have to think, oh, what am I supposed to? You just are yourself. And then through consistently being the same, and we've met each other a few times now, so you're probably like, yeah, I believe that's really her, because she was like that the last few times we met. And I think, and that's when people really open up to you and trust you. And I think that's true in leadership too. I think actually, you spend so much time at work. You do, don't you? We've all got families, but you spend so much time. You have to feel like the people around you, above the same level as you, the people beneath you, you have to believe that they're being authentic. You have, otherwise the trust goes, doesn't it? And then that's one thing to think about then, from your perspective. Obviously, in a corporate business, how many employees have you got in the UK? I think so, but I wouldn't know exactly. I think it's around 2,000.
Right, so you don't even know. That's wrong. You don't know, says it all, right? Big business, lots of people. Yeah. Would you say you know, is it actively promoted within Hayes for people to be themselves, to build personal?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I've actually spoke about personal branding to some larger
Yes.
organizations, and it's
Yes,
all
yes,
about,
we
they
spoke
say
about
things
it,
like, you
yeah.
know, I'm not sure that would fit our corporate image, or would it fit within our guidelines? And I'm like, oh God, guideline, that frightens the crap out of me, having a guideline of telling me what I can and can't say, when, you know, you're asking me to build a network, but you're telling me I can't say things or I can't be me. So how do you guys at Hayes encourage that, would you say?
Well, all I'd say to you is, or anyone listening to this, is go and have a look at my LinkedIn feed. Go and have a look at mine, right?
Yeah.
So if you're saying about how we're encouraged to be authentic.
Yeah.
If you don't believe me, go and have a look at my LinkedIn feed.
Yeah.
Because I think the last thing that I posted was about one of my kind of work. I call him my work twin because he does my job for temps. And probably the person I speak to the most every day.
Yeah.
And I physically saw him for the first time in 18 months last week.
Yeah.
And I was joking about how, it's one thing, it's been great, this whole Teams, this virtual thing. It means that I can see you and we're in different geographical places. But ultimately, it's nothing is the same as that personal connection. But the one I did before that was literally me holding, this is not a joke, me holding some recyclable straws. So we've set a part of it, Team that's setting up a new business around sustainability and sustainable recruitment. And so I've been really part of that. I'm really passionate about sustainability. And so as part of that, because I've said to you, I don't have barriers. I try and make everything holistic. So in my personal life, my little son is turning 6. So I bought some recyclable straws, those, because you shouldn't have plastic straws. And I've given those as party bags at his birthday party, rather than the sort of plastic bags you give to kids when it's their birthday party. And I took a picture of this and put it on LinkedIn and sort of said, look, this is, I believe in sustainability. I absolutely really do. And I live and breathe that in my own life. And look, these are some plastic straws that I gave at my littlest son's birthday party at the weekend, which is true. So I think I don't, you can have a look at my LinkedIn feed, all sorts of stuff I talk about. I've talked about my yoga, I talk about my running and all that, because that's me. I'm not just Gaelle at Hayes. I'm Gaelle, and Hayes is one part of my life, but I have other parts of my life. And
I think that's brilliant, because I'd say from a lot of people working in smaller recruitment firms, the first thing they would say about a Hayes or a Randstad or Robert Walters or whatever is, it's just a machine. I'm just a wheel in a cog, and it's a machine, and you can't be yourself, and you've got to. So tell me, how do you think you have managed to stay in that business and work your way right up to the top in 22 years or 21 years? How have you managed to keep reinventing yourself? What's been your secret to success, would you say?
I suppose the first one is I haven't reinvented myself. I'm still me. And I think that's probably it. I haven't. I don't feel like it's been 22 years, but it has. And I think I would hope that anyone who's listening to this that and there probably will be people that have known me for that entire journey, will go, she's just the same person as she always was. And I think that's the point. I haven't. I think the reason that I've stayed so long is, as much as what can be perceived from the outside of these big corporates, I totally understand why people might think that. I actually feel that I belong to a really creative organisation, actually, that's incredibly innovative. And you talked before about my education. And one of the things I crave in a job, I have to have, if I'm honest, is intellectual stimulation. If I'm bored, I just can't do it. I have to be intellectually stimulated. And I think what I've been really fortunate is I've had people around me who leaders above me, who have spotted that in me and given me opportunities, but not just opportunities. What I've always felt, particularly at the moment, is I've just been given so much support, like real support in my own development, so that I can become a better version of me. But the authenticity and the core of me has stayed exactly the same. But honestly, in terms of actually, we talked about Audrey, didn't we? You started off, that's how we know each other through Ryan, who's the CEO. And, and it's that, for example, here's a very creative piece of toolkit that we are using in Hayes because we are innovative. So I would say that I get why people might perceive that, but actually living it, I know I wouldn't be able to stay at an organisation that didn't have that creativity, that ability to be authentic, to be I just wouldn't, just because it wouldn't suit me. So I get why people would perceive that on the outside, but it's not how it feels like on the inside, I would say.
One of the things this season's all about is habits, right? It's about
Yes.
entrepreneurial or management, daily habits. I think we can all
Yeah.
look at the big macro. I run the UK permanent division. It's
Yeah.
brilliant, it's great. But what the hell does it really look like? Like, could you break down like what an average day looks like and how do you organize yourself to stay on top of such two big jobs that you've got?
So I am I would say I'm quite a morning person.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, I like to kind of get going first thing.
What time
Um,
would you start? What time are you up and about?
well, I normally would wake up at about exercise. Sean and I have talked before this, and we've shared a love of yoga before.
Mm.
And absolutely, I will probably do some form of exercise, some sort of yoga to start off my day, because I think straight away you feel like, yeah, I've achieved something. Sometimes if it's less so now, it's dark in the mornings, but I might go for a run or whatever it might be. So I'll normally start with some form of exercise and kind of that's done. My kids are normally still asleep, so we kind of get that done. And then I tend to do, I do tend to look at the numbers first thing in the morning. It's a bit sad, really. I think the IT lot must all sit there going, God, she's logged on and she's having a look. Because I do want to know where I am. I think I just want to know, where are we?
What numbers are you at that level? What are you looking at?
I'm sad. First thing in the morning, I want to know how many permanent interviews we arranged the day before. I do. I love it. Sad. So it just gives me a vibe to
what sort of numbers are good for you right now? Just be honest. Like, what number would you be like, great day?
Well, I think for me, it's better than the day before, and I think for me, it's the market as we know at the moment is fantastic. I mean, all your listeners will know this. It's nothing that I'm telling them they're not aware of themselves. So I think it's about harnessing that, and we all know it's. But I would say for everybody in any agency at the moment, there is a tension, in the sense of there is a tension between the market demands, which has come back very, very quickly. You and I talk about well-being, and I think that not just Hayes, every person that works in recruitment at the moment is in a very challenging situation, I think, from their own well-being point of view, because you have this massive amount of demand that's come back very, very quickly.
Yeah,
it's not like the GFC. The GFC, it was slow. This time it has pivoted in the space of 6 months, and really pivoted probably in the space of really about 3.
Yeah.
So I think from a well-being point of view, it's how do you cope with where you go from really high levels of demand. So 1.103 million unfilled jobs in the UK, says the ONS a couple of weeks ago. So that's not just Hayes' numbers, that's everyone in recruitment's numbers. So you've got that with REC saying lowest candidate availability in 24 years. So there's this tension, this real tension at the moment with how do you make those two things work? How do you cope and how do you bridge that gap as a recruiter? So I think that for me, I want to make the best of the market that I'm in. And that just starts with knowing where I'm at. So you do have that part of you that's that day-to-day rigor. Don't you ever lose that, is that rigor side. But then you've also got to think of the strategy and then the people. So that's how I compartmentalize it. What am I doing in terms of rigor, knowing the numbers, but also managing it in with what is my overall strategy? Stick with it. Don't change it. Stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. Because I think often, if you don't see immediate results, you think, oh, the strategy is wrong. It's like, no, you've probably not given it enough time. So I think it's stick with your strategy, stick to that. What should I be doing to bring that alive? And then my third part, if I think about the 3 parts of the way most of my days are structured, is then people. Who are in the leadership team? How can I help people? How can I enrich what they do? How can I help them to grow and to develop? So I trying to compartmentalize my days into day-to-day rigor, because you can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Then the strategy, what is my strategic intent? Where am I? What actions do I need to take in the long term to make sure that I'm not reacting short term? And then last of all, people. What am I doing every day to develop the people that I work with, to help them, to enrich them, to make them feel like they're constantly kind of evolving and developing? So you asked about my kind of day structure.
Yeah.
It changes based on, but it always ends up with those 3 key points.
Do you have any kind of like, I don't know, checklist each day that you write down?
Oh God! So I'm a paper and pen girl. So I mean, literally, look. We're talking. Everything gets written down. Yeah. I'm sure that there's lots of people who will tell me that I'm better off. Can I just say, people I work with, definitely my husband is a complete geek, would say I'd be better off typing it all, but I'm a paper and pen girl. Yeah, I do like my to-do list. I do still write it by hand.
But do you have like, I don't know, like for me now, I have I got rid of paper when I started Hoxo.
Right.
It was really awkward for me, but now I couldn't. It'd be a bit weird, I think, going back. And I use this board Trello, and I have my weekly tasks, and then I have my daily, and then I have in progress and done. Right. So I've literally got the start of the week. I'll put as many tasks in and things I want to achieve, and that keeps growing. But then I literally flick maximum 5 things into today, and I try and keep no more than 5. And then over the day, I move them to in progress and done. And since I started that, it feels so much more. I don't know. I feel rewarded that I'm seeing the done pile grow and the other piles get smaller. And I don't know. I think everyone has their own way of doing these things. But how is it for you in that respect?
I was just smiling because you know why we love doing that, don't you? Ticking things off or moving. I like to cross things out. You like to move them across. Yeah. It's all to do with dopamine. It's all to do with we get obviously chemical. We have dopamine that comes into our brains when we feel like we've completed a task, which is why it can be quite addictive. Which is why people get addicted to work, because you like crossing things off. Sorry, to answer your question in terms of, for me, no, if you're asking me how I do it, I just literally do write them down. But I also have strategic plans. So I always make sure that I've got long-term. So I've got my day-to-day, I must do this ones, but I've got strategic plans that I stick to. So I'll do it for a year. I'll have it open almost every day. And I'll make sure that everything I'm doing is in that strategic plan. And the strategic plans are 1 page each, one for construction property, one for perms, done. And then it's always keep going back to it. Where am I up to? What do I need to do on that?
I love it. What's been the worst moment of your recruitment career? When do you look back and think that was a shocking time?
Gosh.
Because you're so positive. You just ooze positivity, but surely you've been through some adversity in that period.
Yeah, I have. I would say times that were really tough was to do with, honestly, coming back from my kids. And I think that there is a natural guilt that, and I'm not saying just women, by the way, because I don't know how it feels to be a father when you have to come back from paternity leave. But so I could empathize, but I can't know how that feels. But I know how it feels coming back as a mum. And I think there's a lot of, I'm so pleased now that generationally, everyone sort of has these ideas about Gen Z. And I actually think Gen Z are great, because Gen Z has made us talk about things that were always there, but we just didn't talk about them as much. And I think actually for me, it was, I absolutely remember you asking me the most challenging day. I can actually tell you the most challenging day. Oh. I had literally just come back from my 3rd son. And, small, he was about 9 months old at the time, so teething and all that sort of stuff. And I remember he woke up early. And so I took him downstairs, he wouldn't wake anybody up. And I switched the news on. It was about 5-6 o'clock in the morning. And it announced that Brexit had happened. Oh. And I think knowing that we'd voted out on Brexit.
June, July 2014, was it?
It was 2016, because my son was about 9 months old.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, oh my goodness, and I just come back from maternity leave, literally a week before. And I'd taken on a much bigger job. I had a very supportive boss who had said, look, actually, I think you can take on more when you come back, and had offered me a promotion. So I was coming back into a bigger job, and I was just sitting there with him thinking, okay, this is going to be a busy day at work. This is going to be a busy month at work. And so it was that, okay, not having a lot of sleep, and, and a small baby and 2 older sons and all that sort of stuff. It was intense, is the word I'd prefer. I mean, I'm very yoga about this. I don't use the word pressure, I use intensity. But I would very much say that was the most intense time of how I had to really manage myself and all the different balls that I was juggling emotionally.
I remember that exact day myself, because I was in London. I was on a call with a client in the morning, and then I had a funeral, my auntie's funeral in the afternoon in North Manchester. So I got a train but the reason I'm telling you is I went from London, where most people I knew had voted Remain, and was very disappointed about the outcome. And I was sat in Euston Station, and there were people just the news, and everyone had their head down. And then I get off this train, I arrive at a funeral, which again, a very sad place, go to the wake, and I've got a group of 65-year-old Mancunians who've all voted out, celebrating, just literally raving about the fact we're out of the EU. And And it was weird. It was just like this app. I just transformed to a different world. And I didn't even know what my own opinion was on that day, because I was like, it's crazy to see that polar opposite of life and how people see things through different lenses. But that time was crazy. In terms of being a mother and being a female in our industry, I think, one of the major reasons I wanted to bring you on today was because I remember when we first spoke, you were having some challenges with your son's school, and yet you're still working. You've got so much. How the hell do you manage like the pressure of children and being, I would say intensity, sorry, and trying to be a great mom, and trying to be a great wife and a mother, but also still feel like you're adding enough value? Because I know a lot of females feel that after they've had a child, their employer might perceive that they're going to add the same level of value. They're not going to be able to commit the same they could before. The time. How have you managed that?
So, and by the way, can I just say that everything you've just said, I don't know, I'm so pleased that you've just said that and just articulated that, because you're absolutely right. A lot of women do feel that way. And I think it's really important that we normalize that. So for any of your listeners, and I'm not just saying gender here, for any men that want to understand what their female employees are going to go through. And I think for any women who have either gone through it or going through it or think they might, everything you've just said is absolutely true. It's not necessarily the pressure that anyone's putting on you, it's the pressure you put on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's real, Sean. It is absolutely real what you've just said. And I've literally had a conversation with someone this week about it. So I think, and it's all the pressure we put on ourselves as women, actually. And maybe men feel the same way they come back from paternity leave. But I know that absolutely it is really hard. And I think that all I would say is you've got to be authentic to yourself. I knew in myself that I wasn't going to be a stay-at-home mum. That was just not the journey. I was lucky in that my mum worked. So my mum is a physiotherapist. And I saw that you could have a career and have children. And so for me, when it came to having my son, I realized, actually, I did want to go back to work. And that's something that I wanted to do for myself and intellectually and all those things. And that's fine. But I think that less so now, but definitely at the time, because my eldest is 13 now, there was a little bit still of a taboo about choosing to go back to work. And almost you weren't as committed as a mum somehow if you went back to it. Like you didn't, like somehow.
You're choosing one.
That's it. Like you're going, well, I don't really care, I'm not as committed a mum if I go back to work. And it wasn't that. It was that I love my son, love all three of them. But it sounds awful, but I needed that intellectual stimulation. I also sure needed the social side in the sense of not always talking about, baby purees and nappies. I wanted to be able to talk about, high level intellectual conversations. I wanted to be able to be independent, financially independent. And there was loads of aspects to it, but more than anything else, I actually really enjoyed it. So I think I felt guilty to start off with about coming back. But the way I got around it and the way I'm still getting around it, because my littlest son is still only 5, is that the way I do it is I do put a lot of energy and, dare I say this, money into childcare. And that's the biggest thing I say to everybody. The reason I don't feel guilty is because I have an amazing nanny that supports us. And we've had the same one for 4 years, and we always have them for really long amounts of time, and we treat her very, very well. And I also think you've got to not be jealous. I think if you're a very quite possessive, jealous mum or parent, it's not going to work for you. But I'm not. So I'm very much like, I love the fact she loves my kids. I love the fact they love her. I don't feel intimidated by that. I actually love the fact she's part of our family. But I do spend, a lot of energy and money on that because I want to be able to focus completely, and be in work and be in the moment and be very present. Yeah. And then when I'm at home, I want to be very present with my children. So but I also think, be yourself. If you want to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mum, that's okay. You don't have to come and do this, any job. If you do need more, don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel like you have to justify or say you're not a good mum for doing that. It's okay. It's okay to want to come back to work. And that doesn't mean that me and my brother have turned out, we've turned out right so far, So the fact my mum works clearly hasn't had a huge impact.
Yeah. See, I came from a different experience where my mum wouldn't let us be with anyone. So and I don't think I
Right.
stayed with like my grandparents or anything. Like literally, we were
Right.
glued to my mum. So I saw a very different experience. And I think like my boss in recruitment, Claire, who hopefully she'll be listening, reminds me just of you, the way she managed it in London. And I remember thinking, I'll be brutally honest, I remember thinking, oh, how's she going to do that? Like, does that mean what? She's not going to spend all day with the kids? And she managed it, but she actually managed to. I think she had a nanny for a couple of days, but she went to work and she was brilliant. But she
Yeah.
said, just like you, the feeling of being in work and having those conversations meant
Yeah.
that she enjoyed every moment with her kids and didn't get too
Yes.
bogged down with. And it was, I think being in London and being around a different type of people, I've seen a different experience to that. And I think everyone's different, right? We're all different.
Yes.
We eat different. We listen to different
Yeah.
music. Why do we all have to do the same route when it comes to family, friends, jobs,
Yeah.
work, relationships? We don't. It's just not. It's not how how life works. One question I've got for you, because I think you're a ball of energy. You've been great at the job. You've promoted yourself. You've managed. Did you ever think of starting your own business? Because I can imagine you would build an absolute powerhouse recruitment business. Did it ever cross your mind at any point to leave Hayes and grow your own firm?
Yes, it did. But I think I've always really loved the people I work with, and that's genuine. Like I think that there's people, for example, very old friends. I feel like I've got now.
Yeah.
One of the she works for Hayes, but she works in our European division. She did a reading at my wedding, and I got married
Yeah.
16 years ago. I think, and I'm still in contact with one of my closest friends now. So I think that I've got these relationships, and I think that's the key. I think that keeps me really grounded. People have known me through my whole career, that have supported me, and I think that means a lot to me. I absolutely would say that. I'm very much, I believe in that. I invest a lot in my relationships at work, and I really appreciate when people do that for me. And I think for me, I don't feel like I'm done on my journey. What I love is as you said, so I'm 22 years into my career with Hayes, and yet there's so much further I can go. And that's what I love about, there's lots of things you can say, positives and negatives about both. I'm not judging anyone who wants to make different decisions. Like you said, you have to go with what's right for you. But I love the fact there's still so much further I could go, still much more I could do. And I think I'm still learning. I think if ever, I think for me, if ever I didn't, that would be more challenging for me. But I've never been in a place where I wasn't. So I think I've sorted it out. I've made sure I've gone out there and tried to learn myself, and there's lots of things I do to make sure I do. So I think it's the relationships, definitely, the innovation, the creativity, the fact I've been given lots and lots and new things and projects to do that's kept me interested.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not someone I wouldn't like being bored.
No.
That would interest me. So I think, and it's the opportunity to do new things. I've done quite a lot of new things with Hayes. So that's probably why I haven't, because I guess if I set up on my own, I'd be doing the same thing all the time, whereas I actually quite like the fact I don't.
No, I think that's, and the reason I asked that question is because I think, again, it's a bit like the situation with children or whatever. In our industry, I could be guilty of this by having a show called the Recruitment Agency Growth Show, and I interview founders all the time. Some people believe the only route is to start your own business, when actually we don't need every recruiter in the world to become a founder of a brand. We need people, and there's an amazing career path available for people who want to work within a business and grow with it. And it's great to hear you so passionate about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, but it's I respect and totally support anybody who wants to go down that road, and I think you just find the right place for you, don't you? That's the beauty of it all.
That's what it's about. So one thing, again, we talked about previously was your love of yoga, your love of life, I think, was one of the things I got. And you mentioned it. You don't see there's a work Gaelle and a home Gaelle.
Yeah.
And I'm exactly the same, right? I'm literally, I feel like too many people try and have this line where they're like, this is my professional Sean and my home Sean. And I'm like, how the hell, I might forget which one I'm trying to be on that day. I'd rather be me. So, talk us through that. Like, how do you blend them, and where did the love of yoga and taking that further come from?
So yoga, I'll answer that one first because I love yoga. Absolutely love it. I know, actually, ironically, when I think I'm done with recruitment, you'll find me somewhere, maybe in Bali, teaching yoga somewhere. So, I'll pass my across. So that's probably more likely to happen. But yoga, so I've always been somebody that's always used fitness. We talk about mental well-being and physical well-being. Again, I don't see it as two separate things. I see it as the same thing. And I think that, so I came to yoga from injury, actually. So I've always been someone who's been very physically fit. I've ran, swam, done things all my life. That's been something through university, through school. I always used exercise as kind of my release, I guess, to keep focused academically. And I actually sort of very badly sprained my ankle. And I'd done it once before, and I was on crutches for 8 weeks. And I went to private physio, and I was getting all the physio, and she actually said to me, you're out of balance. And she said, you're doing all the cardio stuff, but you will now keep getting injured because you're not in balance. You have some muscles that are much stronger than others. And whenever you're in imbalance, then in your body, then you will start getting injured.
Would you put pressure on places that,
exactly. Because you're just exercising the same muscles over and over again to the point where they just wear and tear. Just the sheer load means your body's out. So certain muscles will be very developed, others very, very weak. So she said to me, I'd like you to try yoga. And I can also say to you, before then, I was in my 20s, right? Before then, I'd have been like, I used to walk past the yoga classes thinking, they are like having this easy. That looks so easy what they're doing. Like, what's that all about? I was on my way to the spin class. Do you know what I mean? What are they all about? And it was so funny because we haven't spoken a lot about ego yet, but I know that, in recruitment, it's perceived. I don't think actually necessarily always true that people got a lot of, is there an ego thing, etc. And you have to leave your ego at the door with yoga. Let me tell you, right? Let me tell you. So I walk in thinking, I'm pretty fit, ego, I'm pretty fit, I'll be fine. I go in and there's all these kind of, 80 and 70-year-old women. I'm the youngest in the class by about 40 years. So I'm sitting there on my yoga mat, and they absolutely, they just did it all. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so hard. And so your ego, my ego in this case, thinking, I'm in my 20s, I'm pretty fit, I'm able to do this. I think that's when your moment you go, oh my goodness, it's humbling.
Yeah.
And the journey I've been on with yoga has been to understand that in yourself, you have to be in balance. And it's not just about your body being in balance, your body and your mind, your work and your private life, all those things have to be in balance. And whenever they're not, when they go out of kilter and you're overemphasizing one other than the other, you don't feel right in yourself. And it comes out in other ways. So you might, if you're somebody that naturally gets a lot of, sore throats or whatever it might be, your tummy gets, and you're like, what's going on? And then you realize, actually, it's not this, it's actually, I'm just out of balance here. And I think that's why yoga is so important to me, because it allows me the mindfulness and that being present time to really think about, and being myself, because I think we've talked a lot about, work gal or my family gal, but what about me? What about actually me, the one that's in the middle of it all, going, what do I actually want? And I think yoga allows me to just have that mindfulness, to just clear my head and have time on my own without my boys, who I love, but and my work that I love, but there's also quite demanding as well. So it's just that mindfulness moment.
What would you say? What are the symptoms then of this imbalance? I think you're bang on, by the way. I love it, and I felt that so much in so many different ways. But some people are sat listening to this, going, I don't really know what I'm looking at. Like, what would you say is an obvious symptom that you might not be in balance, both in any way?
I would say it manifests itself very differently with different people. I think it's whenever it could be that you feel quite frazzled, that you maybe difficulty in concentrating, difficulty in sleeping, difficulty in maintaining attention. You often see people with their phones and constantly checking their phones, and that in a way in itself is an imbalance. So it could be to do with your almost that focus side of things, or it could manifest itself more in a physical. So it could be that you suddenly realize that you're getting more headaches, more sore throats, your tummy isn't quite right, you can't figure it out. There's something that you'll suddenly go, why is this, why am I suddenly getting a load of this? And I think it's just take a moment and go, what is this actually about?
Yeah.
What is this actually about? And I don't think you don't get a trophy for winning life. It's not like what does that even mean? It's kind of, it's about just winning at your life. And success doesn't have to be dictated to you by, the car you drive or the watch you wear. I'm not even wearing a watch. So
ego, though, isn't it?
Back to the ego, isn't it? So to me, I think it's quite liberating. If you I don't know if you're interested in podcasts, I know we're obviously on other ones. Have you ever heard of John McAvoy?
Yeah, I listened to his whole story on the Live Well podcast with Rangan Chang.
So he's the triathlete who used to be a prisoner.
Armed robbery, I mean, what a story.
I know, I love him. So I follow him on Instagram, and I think he's amazing. And I think he is very much about that, isn't it? It's about what you build, not what you own. And I think that to me is about the balance, and it doesn't have to be that, because I think if it's always about something that you want to own or something like that, all it ever is you get there, and then you realise that actually the joy was in the journey, not in the actual thing that you got, because it's just a thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really change. You think this thing is going to make you all powerful, and actually it really doesn't.
I feel like everywhere I look at the moment, it's just people reminding you that actually today is all you have. Tomorrow is not happening. Yesterday's gone. And, and we have this natural thing where next year is going to be better. Next year will be better. I'll be in better shape. My business will be better. I'll be making more money. I'll be happier. If I just do this, I'll get to that. I'll be happy. And it just isn't how life works at all. But it is still really difficult, especially when we work within a sector where all it is promoting growth. Get promoted, do another deal, hit that target. So you're like, well, all day I'm talking about winning, growing. And then, in family life, it's get married, have children, grow your family. Everything's about growth and development. You're not brought up to enjoy the day. Like, no one tells you as a child in school.
Yes, totally.
It's always about where you going in the future. Don't mess up your future. That's all it ever is. So it's like you get to an age where suddenly you figure out, shit, is this all it's about? And people catch that point at different times.
Absolutely. And I think people feel that about their careers. I was having a conversation with a family member actually, and and I think that it's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself. And to me, it's going back to before, which is focus on the process rather than almost the outcome, and the outcome will take care of itself. Because if you sort of almost pause your enjoyment, because I can't enjoy it until I get to this number, or I can't enjoy it until I can buy this thing, hitting that number or buying that thing will feel like a real anticlimax if you've not enjoyed, if you've sacrificed too much almost in the journey. Whereas if you can enjoy the journey, then actually, I'm not saying enjoy in the sense of it's always going to be like, fluffy pink cushions. I think, that work hard, make yourself work hard, but don't suspend your enjoyment of it. And, work so hard to the point where you then get there and all you feel is like crushing anticlimax. What next,
A couple of weeks ago, Mark Zanowski, who sold Staff Group, said, it's probably the darkest year of his life after exiting. And he was like, and he got back in because he was like, it's actually all about the journey, and he loves it now. And I thought that was really something people need to hear, especially in the founder community, where a lot of people have got an exit plan and they think then they're going to be the happiest they'll ever be, and often they're not.
I've seen that actually. I've seen it in my own circle of friends. It actually, if anything, it's actually. It can be very dark actually afterwards.
Totally. One other thing I wanted to touch on, and again, I don't know what your opinion is or whatever, but I'm fascinated by the communication strategies we have in work, right? We have meetings all the time. We document minutes. We circulate agendas. We discuss issues. We have outcomes. We have projects. And yet at home, most people I talk to have absolutely no strategy around communicating to their spouse, their family, their kids. Like it's just expected to happen. Come home knackered, I'll be fine, whatever. And we wonder why 50% of marriages break down and all the things that are going on. So, do you have anything like this? Do you ever think about the family life and everything else, and put as much rigor and structure and strategy as you would at work?
Yeah, actually, we do. That makes it sound really sad.
Yeah, someone does.
Just like, so I think that we're in this generation where, you know, both partners, a lot of my friends, not all of them, but a lot of my friends, I'd say about half, will have a partner has an equal job to them. I think I feel like very much I'm in that generation, that the generation above me, the wife stayed at home. Sorry to be, that genuinely is what happened. I feel like I'm in that generation where about 50% of my university friends are at home and 50% carried on working. So my husband and I both have pretty serious careers. So I would never expect him to turn around to me and go, well, I expect you to, I don't know, not work. Or I don't know how he would even, I don't think I don't know, he'd want to say that to me, but I would never say to him, well, you can't. So we have to work it through. Yeah. So right from the get-go, we've always respected each other's careers and always therefore had to go, how do we do this as a team? So I think you absolutely have to, it's almost like it's the most important team that you have, 100%. Because it's the team that sits behind the ability for us both to do our jobs the way we want to. So yeah, absolutely. It's quite, you know, there's quite a lot of structure that goes behind that of, you know, for example, literally, it sounds sad, but what days are, you know, is he going to be in because he works in Canary Wharf, and what days am I going to be here, and how do we make sure that we, you know, that someone's here for the kids, and it's kind of like, so I think absolutely, and absolutely in the pandemic, where we didn't, you know, have our lovely nanny because she wasn't allowed to come, and we had the kids at home because we were homeschooling. You know, it literally was, I know I'm a real morning person, so I was like, look, I want to do this, this, and this in the morning, but then I had to be very available for the children at other times, if that makes sense. So yeah, we really do. We really have to sit there. We've got a shared calendar, a shared really sad. Like, so we've got a shared calendar. So you know, because obviously you need to have your social life, you need to see better your mates and do the things you want to do. So yeah, we put things. Yeah, it's quite boring.
That's great. It's not boring. It's not. I'm totally on board. I'm totally on board with it.
It's the sad practicality, isn't it? Of
partnership. But again, why is it? Again, I can see why you're saying it, and we'd all say it. But why is it sad? Because you put that. No one would run a business without shared calendars and having a meeting once a week and talking about how you feel and appraisals and all that shit. Whereas, but this even more important relationship. Oh no, we don't need that. I just need to exist and hope it goes well. Like, it's nonsense.
No, we actually have. I mean, this is really sad, but we do actually have designated jobs that we do. Yeah. They're genuine. So I'm, as you know, surprised to you, the communications expert. So I'll be doing all the birthday cards, all the birthday. You know, frankly, no one would get anything if I wasn't doing it. But I probably put the bins out, you know, once a month. You know what I mean? So I think it's kind of, there's certain, you know, I'm not a gardener. I'll tell you that straight away. Love nice garden, don't enjoy doing it. I love cooking. So I think it's playing to do what you do at work, isn't it? Playing to your strengths, figure out what you're both good at. But oh God, if you both want to work and both have a career, then you've got to talk to each other, otherwise it doesn't work.
Even if you don't, even if one's at home, I think it's the same, because if anything, you'd even be more disconnected if your partner's at home all day with none of this stimulation, and then you come home and don't have any, don't talk to them or don't share things. And I don't know. I'm just really passionate about this. I think it's so important for people to. There's no point in being the most successful guy in business or woman if your life's falling apart behind the scenes. There's literally no point. One thing I feel from you is balance. I genuinely believe. I mean that. I feel like, you know, mental health, physical health, work, relationships, and it's all ticking forward. So, you know, it's inspirational. Well done. I love it. What I'd love for people to do, if you're okay with that, is if anyone's listening today and has enjoyed it, because I'm sure they will, just if they could reach out to you and ask you any questions. No. And would LinkedIn be the best place, Gaelle?
Absolutely. You can see that I'm telling the truth about all my weird and wonderful LinkedIn posts. Go and have a look at my, you know, recyclable straws and my yoga mat, because it's all on there. So go and have a look. Well, that's it. I'm actually on my picture wearing the same dress as I'm wearing today. That was random, but I happen to be. So yes,
you know what? I'm wearing the same shirt. And that wasn't random as well. But I don't actually own many clothes, right? People, you know, I'm one of them people. When I left London, I threw about £3,500 of clothes away, suits and bags and shit that I never needed. And I never built it back up, right? So in the pandemic, I used to wear like 5 T-shirts and a shirt. And now I'm the same. So I've literally got 4 shirts, I think. I've got a load of these t-shirts. I've got 6 of these t-shirts that are similar shape and slightly different colors. I've got 2 jeans, no chinos. I mean, I don't care about stuff like that. It's not me. So there's a good chance if you're on a meeting with me, or you're going to see me wear this shirt. If you go back through my podcast episodes,
there you go. John McAvoy would be very proud of you. That's very much that's the essence of him, isn't it? It's not about things. No, it's about love and people and
listen. Have you ever heard of the Minimalists? Have you ever heard of those guys?
No,
it's amazing. Go on Netflix. Go on Netflix
with my pen and paper.
Go on Netflix. Watch the documentary The Minimalist or Minimalism, and then They have a podcast. They have books. I've consumed most of it, and their tagline is one thing. I probably will get it tattooed at some point. It's love people and use things, not the other way around, right? And it's just the perfect way to put it. If you love things and use people, you won't be around people for very long. And that's kind of how I like to live my life. But Gaelle, I wish I could talk to you all day, but I'm actually heading to London soon myself. I'm on a train at 2:30, so I need to pack up, but we'll definitely have you on again in the future. I'd 100% have a follow-up and see how things have evolved. And, as the world, I think we're in a weird boom market, as you said. I do think it's going to balance out. There's going to be a lot of change in the next 12 months. But again, thank you so much for taking the time today.
No worries.
And I'll be back again next Wednesday with another episode. In the meantime, you stay safe, and I will see you soon. Thank you, as always, for listening to today's show. I truly, truly hope that you got value from it. That's the only reason I take time every week, is to ensure that my audience, future and existing recruitment owners, are learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. Today's episode was brought to you by Hoxo Media. I am the CEO and founder of Hoxo Media, and we are the world's leading content marketing and personal branding agency for recruitment businesses specifically. So we are working with over 200 agencies and 2,000 recruiters right now, both managing the brands, producing content, building written, video, podcast content for niche recruitment agencies all over the world, as well as coaching at a desk level individual recruiters in your businesses how to be better on LinkedIn. That's how to brand themselves. That's how to produce content. That's how to use the opportunity on LinkedIn to get traffic to their profiles and turn that into business. We're coaching people all over the world every single day. If any of that sounds of interest, please do visit www.hoxomedia.com or drop me, Sean Anderson, a personal message on LinkedIn. I would love to talk to you. Tune in again next week. That's live on LinkedIn at 12 p.m. on Thursday, or you can catch the show on the following Monday from 6 a.m. on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'll see you soon.